Yourself. Okay, this is April 14th, 2012. We're in Bear Lake, Michigan, 9005 Glover's Lake Road, Bear Lake, Michigan. And we're going to be interviewing Lorraine Willingham. Lorraine, what's your date of birth?
2/27. Excuse me. 2/21/27.
1927? Okay. All right. Attending this interview is myself, Alan Willingham, and Lorraine Willingham. All right. I am with the Monroe County Community College Michigan History course, and I have some questions for you. What was your is Willingham your married name?
Yes.
What was your maiden name?
Allen, Allen.
Okay. I know you're not supposed to ask these kind of questions, but how old are you now?
Let's see. 65. 65.
85?
85.
Okay. Okay. I was gonna say you're only a couple years older than me. How'd that happen? Okay.
Thinking of anniversary.
Yes, your anniversary is coming up. You're right. You've been married 66 wonderful years. All right. Where were you born and raised?
In Toledo, Ohio.
Okay. What was your family background?
Oh, my father was a pilot, a flight instructor, and he worked for the government, and he taught the ROTC boys at the University of Toledo night flying.
Nice.
And he was also a flight instructor at the airport.
Okay, and mother?
She worked during World War II in a factory, and she was a sergeant in the Civil Air Patrol. She flew part-time. She was called a observer in flighting observer.
You were talking earlier, you had an interesting story about a mail pickup with her.
Yeah, I don't know what you call those poles that are in the ground, and they got ropes on them, and we had to come by in the airplane and lower the rope down that had a hook on it, and she had to hook onto that pole and grab that wire and pull it back up into the airplane, or take the message off of it. Well, she forgot her gloves that day, and when she was pulling it, the cord that she was pulling up got caught on top of a little bit of trees and yanked it back out of her and hurt her hands. And then we took the message on. She took the message. She was the observer. My dad was a pilot. And then they took the message on to where it was supposed to go. Sometimes she would Morse code it on, or they'd go to wherever they were supposed to land and deliver the message.
Very good. What was your mother and father's name?
Mother's name was Bernadine. And my dad's name was Everett.
Right. All right. Occasionally you had an opportunity to come up to Michigan when you were a young girl. All right. What was Michigan like then? About, were we talking the 20s, early 30s?
Well, when you came out of Clare, Michigan, going towards Harrison, you could always smell the pine trees. Now you can't do that today, but you come up, there wasn't very many houses, and when you went on to the Upper Peninsula, they had a big forest fire up there, and all the trees were taken down and chopped. And we went to this campground at Brevoort Lake, and when we got there, the CC boys were making that park. They were putting in new new trees, and they were putting in tables and fireplaces, and they were putting in these brand new baby pine trees, and I got to help them put some in. And the trees were so barren there that when you went up in the tower, they're called the fire tower that they had, that you could see all over, everywhere. And later, when we went back again years later, why, all the pine trees had grown so tall that you couldn't see anything out of that fire tower anymore. But the lake was still there. It was still pretty. The bears were still there. And when we saw the bears, they always went into the garbage cans, and they were in the ground with metal tops on them. And you had to put your foot on that to open it up to put the garbage in. Well, the bears found out how to do that. When we were with the CC boys, we went over to their camp, and just to see the bears over there licking out all of the great big cans that was left over with a little bit of juice in them from their beans or their fruit. And they were over there. We just go over there to see the bears.
What was the wildlife back then? You already talked about the bears. Did you see anything that we wouldn't see today?
Only thing I've seen a lot of then was the whippoorwills. The whippoorwills were so thick in that area that at night they all said whippoorwill, whippoorwill, whippoorwill. And they laid their nests on the ground next to these burn-off trees. I thought they would have been in the trees like normal birds would do to lay their nests, but they didn't. That was nice. And we went back years later, when after we got married, and there wasn't a whippoorwill around. And I liked that at night to sing me to sleep.
Must have been pretty. How about any unusual fish that you saw back then you wouldn't see today?
Oh, I thought we saw some in Grayling there at the, what's the name of the river?
Sabo?
Sabo River out of Grayling. A very, very few flying fish. What do you call that?
Grayling?
Graylings, yeah. But at that time they're finished. There were a few left, but you weren't allowed to keep them. It was a no-no. But I don't think they see them anymore today.
What was the largest fish you ever recall seeing?
Recalling seeing. Around in Michigan here? In Michigan?
Yes.
Oh boy. A big muskie out of Brevoort Lake, and a big salmon out of Arcadia.
Okay. How big was a muskie in Brevoort Lake?
Oh boy. We had an 18-foot boat, and the muskie must have been half of that boat anyway.
About 8-9 feet?
Oh, I don't know, not that long, but it was real big, and Dad went to get it out of the water with his, not a dip net,
Gaff?
the gaffling, and it straightened out the gaffling. Wow. It was so heavy and big.
As you were growing up, what were some of your pastimes, your hobbies?
My hobbies. I like flying, was one of them. I had a bicycle, and I loved canoeing, boating, anything, hunting and fishing.
Shooting?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What type of shooting did you do?
I did trap and a little bit of skeet. That's where I learned how to hunt. By practicing there before I could go out hunting, I had to learn how to trap, shoot. And I had a single shotgun. I think it was a 20 gauge, and I did trap real good. But when skeet came along, well, I only had one shot, and you had to have more than one shell in your gun at the time. And my dad said, if you can't get them with this trap with just one shell, you don't need to be shooting.
Right. All right, I'm going to switch to your World War II experience. What exactly did you do during World War II?
Well, I belonged to the Civil Air Patrol. I did a lot of flying because my dad was a flight instructor and my mother was a pilot. And I learned to be a pilot too. And I became a sergeant in the Civil Air Patrol. And I was flying when I was 14.
Were you flying solo when you were 14?
I got my first solo was a 14, yes, but I didn't get my license until I was 16. Because 16 was the first timers. It was 16. I don't know what it is today, but I know the little kids, girls and boys have been 11 and 10 flying as long as they could fly, as long as they had an adult with them that knew about flying.
That was back then?
That's since then.
Since then,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I had to have somebody to fly with me until the day I came in, and I had a ex-Army pilot that was back home. I don't know whether he was on leave or what, but I never met him before. And I got in the plane, and we took off, and he went around the airport, and he says, okay, land. I landed. He got out, and he says, you're on your own. Take a trip around and come back. Nobody else knew it. I was a big surprise. And I was only 14. And I landed the plane without a bump or anything. And my dad was back there at the airport, and they all were kidding him and hitting him on the back, saying, see, she landed perfectly. And my dad came out and he says, give her student pilot's test. So when he came out and I took the test, I think you have one of those tests there. I got 70 is the lowest number. My other numbers were higher, and I didn't pass. And my dad looked at the test, and he says, well, she's not supposed to have this. This is a private test. You know, you student and private.
Right.
And that means I had to take the student all over, but I almost passed the private.
The private was a higher level?
Oh yeah, because I didn't meteorology. I didn't take that when I was a student.
Yeah.
But that's the one I think that's the one I didn't make. And I didn't know how to repair the airplane either. That was another thing I had to know. And that's the two things that I didn't.
Well, that's pretty good. In World War II, what type of airplanes did you fly?
During World War II?
Yeah.
Well, they go all the way from two different types of Cubs.
Okay.
Cub could hit on another Cub. That was a you go up and you scrutinize the area, and then you come back and tell them what you saw. They did them in World War II. What's the name of that? Well, anyway, I did that, Taylorcrafts, Aeroncas, Beechcraft, Cessnas, and a Funk, and Stearman.
Very good. Any other aircraft?
Yeah, I did a Bel Air Cobra.
How about this? You lift this up and show the camera here.
Yeah.
That's a fighter aircraft, a Bel Air Cobra?
Yeah.
What'd you do with that?
I helped take them over to and sell them to Russia.
And where'd you fly out of?
Out of Boston, Maryland.
Okay, and then you flew where from Boston, Maryland?
Across over to the closest spot in Russia we could get to. I think it was part of Siberia, wasn't it? What they call it?
could be, I'm not sure exactly where you landed, probably across the Bering Strait, I imagine.
Yeah, across the Bering Strait,
But
yeah.
you cut across Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And no armament, I mean, no ordnance on it?
Nope.
Alright, was there a plan if you came across a stray enemy plane or anything like that? No?
Nope.
Did you have a fighter escort or anybody?
No fighter.
Wow.
We had a cargo plane that landed with us and then it brought us back home. Dug 2 engine. I don't know, it was a DC then or what the number was of it.
Was there any casualties in the unit?
In flight over there?
Yeah.
To that flight? No, there was no casualty.
You were showing me a
Oh,
Michigan
that-
History magazine here.
Yeah.
Could you hold that up for me, please? What is that a picture of?
A picture of the girls that were in the WASP and the WASP that flew airplanes for the government.
Okay, and you were attached to that group?
I was young. Wasn't exactly attached to them, but I was followed and learned a lot of things that they did and what they didn't do.
All right, is there a reason why you're not in the picture?
Yes, because they were drinking alcohol, and I wasn't allowed.
An interesting thing about the one in the front, third from the left,
Yeah.
she's got a bandage over her nose. What do you know about that?
Well, I understand that when you want me to put it down?
Well, it's up to you.
When she put her foot on the brakes, she wanted to turn after she landed. You're not supposed to put hard on both brakes. If you want to turn right, you put one brake on hard and the other one on soft. Well, she put them both on hard and she hit her nose forward.
All right. Did you win any medals or citations?
Well, I got when I soloed that day, that army man gave me a little tiny wings to put on my blouse, and then I got this other one later when I started flying with my uniform.
Very good. Okay, your generation is rightly called the greatest generation.
It is.
How do you feel about that, and do you agree or disagree with that claim?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of betters since then.
Okay. All right. I have a theory. All right, and I just want to bounce it off and see what you think. Okay. The theory goes like this. Your generation grew up through the Depression. Okay, and a lot of part of the Depression, there was a tremendous amount of lack and rationing, and you through that your generation, according to my theory, learned how to do without.
Yes.
Okay, now when World War II came around, the rest of the nation here had to do without also. There's also a continuation of that. There was rationing, if I'm correct, on gasoline, bread, sugar, tires, things like that. Even cars, there's a moratorium on making cars. They weren't making cars.
Right.
All right, so that's the setup. So if the something like World War II happened again, something that immense where the whole United States had to mobilize again, do you think with our current generation, be honest one way or another, there's not a wrong answer, what do you think that we would pull it together again like that?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. All right, can you think of anything else I might want to know that I didn't ask you?
You didn't ask me about the Liberators out of the Willow Run.
Oh yeah, tell me about those airplanes.
Those were they were made in I was in Romulus, and one of my instructors, in fact 2 of my instructors, One of them was a Navy instructor for the pilots at Grosse Ile, Michigan. The other one worked at the Ford plant. He was an engineer, and he also flew the B-24s out of Willow Run when they were off the assembly line. And I got to ride in one of them once because he was my instructor, and I was interested, and they were interested in what I was doing. And I was being younger than the rest of them, so I got to go with them for that one trip. We went out over the lake.
How was the airplane to ride in?
It wasn't bad. I didn't think.
Was it solid? Did it shudder when it flew? I mean,
Not any more than any other plane that I noticed.
was it loud inside?
It wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Because you had helmets on, and you had the thing on your ears,
When you
and a flight parachute.
you had to wear parachutes, and when he fired up those 4 engines and you first took off, what did acceleration feel like?
Fun.
Fun? Nice.
Fun.
And while we're talking about acceleration, this Bell Air Cobra, okay, how fast was that?
I don't know which one. It was either 300 to 400 miles, 300 400 horsepower,
Yeah.
around that.
Okay, so in miles per hour, about 300 to 400 miles per hour, you're saying?
No, the rev,
Oh,
the
the
horsepower.
horsepower. Okay, and
I don't think they could go too much further than either on gasoline or fuel.
okay. What about when you took off? What was the acceleration with that like?
That was kind of noisy. We had our leather jackets with the shearskin lining in it, and our shearskin leather hats, and the heat came from underneath the plane through the tubes. And sometimes something sounded different on the airplane where you cut those tubes off so you could hear and see if there was something wrong with the plane.
It's kind of scary. But when you took off, I mean, it's a fighter airplane. You're used to flying Cubs and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I had to go rev up to the mileage, not the mileage, the RPMs of the plane.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, some planes were 57 miles per hour.
Right.
Horsepower on up, you had to gradually go up.
Right. So did it feel faster than the other planes you were flying?
Yeah,
or
yeah, oh yeah.
Did it respond quicker and faster, or?
It didn't seem to be too bad. No, I didn't. I think the little planes went up. We had shorter runways, and they went up faster than I thought, because these had to take a little longer.
Okay. Did any of the people flying in your flight of airplanes going up there, did they ever play with them? Did they ever come down, buzz the deck or something, or?
No, we didn't do that.
Okay.
No.
Never get them.
No, but when the Russian gals came out to get into the planes when we landed, they had women there fly their planes, and they always wanted to know where the push was, and that's all they wanted to know about that plane.
What's the push?
That was the throttle.
All right. Very good. Anything else you think I missed?
Oh, let's see.
How about parachutes? You're talking about packing.
Oh yeah. Up at that's part of the parachute. At Willow Run, before we could even fly, we had to know how to fold a parachute. And they had a great big tall and long building with great big long tables. And you put the parachute, the whole thing, on the table, and you had to follow the lines down with your fingers to make sure none of them were crossed. And then you had to go back up, and you had to fold the top down and the chute down. And then if you couldn't fly until you could pack a parachute. And if you didn't pack the parachute right, why you didn't get to fly. So they, after we put them all together, they took them and put them way up in the ceiling, and then they put the hook on them, and it opened it up. And if it didn't come out right, then you didn't get to fly.
And did you do yours right?
Yeah, I did mine right.
Good thing. All right, very good. I thank you very much for this interview. Can you think of anything else I may have forgotten to ask you?
Only
you wanna
thing
tell
is
me?
that I came from a whole family of flyers.
It sounds like that.
My dad was in World War One,
Okay.
and he went out of Texas, and he flew there, and he said there were more World War One planes lost there in Kelly Fields, Texas, than it was lost in the fighting in World War One.
Did he ever make it overseas?
No,
Anything else you can think of?
The only thing is, I was a sergeant in the Civil Air Patrol.
You mentioned that. That was
Mhm,
really good.
I can't remember anything right now. You
Okay.
mentioned it, maybe I could.
Well, I think we pretty much covered it.
Mhm.
I thank you again very much for the interview. And I'll get this written up